Welcome to Business Reporter. I'm Louise People, and today I'm joined by Bill Barney, CEO of Reliance Communications and Global Cloud Exchange. Hi, Bill.
Hi.
So I've heard a lot about cloud, but what I haven't heard is enterprise cloud.
I think enterprise cloud is going to be one of the most disruptive trends for enterprises in terms of saving money over the next decade. Enterprises today are migrating their compute and their IT spend and saving quite a bit of money in the process. So it's a new technology, a disruptive technology that reduces costs across the enterprise.
Tell us about the evolution of the cloud and how it's going to affect businesses.
Okay. So cloud has evolved. Essentially, it's the movement of desktop computing to shared computing. And it really this has been an evolution over the last 5 or 6 years as broadband and internet has become proliferated across the globe. People have been able to realize that they can share computing power between users as opposed to actually having to own computing power themselves. And so this has really been the shift in terms of what has driven cloud computing. And it really, what part of it was getting 3 billion people onto the net. Now that 3 billion people are on the net, they can actually no longer have to carry around their computing. They can actually share it somewhere inside the cloud.
Let's talk about security. We've heard of Snowden, iCloud. How can we be secure working with Global Cloud Exchange?
Louise, we are secure. Security is one of the most overblown issues, I think, in our industry. And I think the reality is security is getting better and better and better every year. It used to take us 2, 3, 4 days to find an intruder into networks. Now we find out in a millisecond. So the reality is there are people that can get in, but they're stopped very, very quickly. And that's actually happening faster and faster. And the amount of technology that's being invested in this space is only going to get better over the next few years.
Now, Global Cloud Exchange is focusing on developments in the emerging markets.
Yes.
Now, why these regions? Why have you chosen them?
This is probably the most important region for the next 2 decades.
Okay.
If you think about it, today there's roughly 2 billion users that don't use the internet, that will use the internet over the next 20 years in that part of the world. And this is really looking from essentially Eastern Europe through China to Japan.
Okay.
So that corridor right there defines where you'll see most of the younger folks coming up. You're going to see most of the internet users coming in there. And it's also where most of the Western companies are trying to tap to get growth. So they're actually moving there. They're trying to get whatever you're selling, whether it be automobiles, refrigerators, anything that's in the consumer space, you want to go to that group of consumers because that's where wealth creation is happening and that's where growth is happening. And the opportunity also is these markets are very, very difficult from a regulatory standpoint and from an infrastructure standpoint because they're much further behind. They're emerging markets, and the infrastructure hasn't been there for the last few decades. And so there's a lot of infrastructure spending going on there, and we see that also as the opportunity as we start to operate in those places, and also helping those governments figure out how to bring internet services and online services into those markets. And we invested almost $2.5 billion of infrastructure across those areas. And we have been the pioneer in those places, and one of the reasons why we're hugely successful as a company now is that we've got a management team that's actually been operating in those places for a very, very long time.
So let's say my organization wants to operate in these emerging markets. What would be the biggest challenge?
An enterprise today in the Western environment believes that whatever they can do in London, they can do in Saudi Arabia, and they can do in Beijing. The reality is the infrastructure is very, very different. And so you actually have to have different solutions in each one of these emerging markets to deal with the regulations and the infrastructure that's in place. But a customer wants a solution that looks the same everywhere. So if you're an enterprise and you've got 100 offices, you want the network to work. They want everyone to have access to the internet the same way everywhere. What a company like us can do is make that possible because we can actually facilitate how you do that in these environments. And I think that's where we talk about the human experience. So it's not only being able to say, okay, I can deal with your problem in Saudi Arabia or I can deal with your problem in China, but it's also saying this is how. And we've got the people that have done this for 15 years that can do that.
I'm a startup new media and I want to work with Global Cloud Exchange. What would be a step-by-step guide to go through this introductory period?
Yeah, so take a company in California today. They'll come up with an application that allows them to compete with Facebook. It's a Facebook alternative. They build this Silicon Valley and they say, oh my goodness, I can actually go and deal with enterprises in India or China. What we can actually do is say, okay, take that application. It's hosted here. we can now host it there as if you're a local company in one of those markets. So one of the things that we're able to do with our network and our infrastructure is make it a seamless migration for customers from their local environment to a global environment. So we allow tech companies on the internet to globalize.
It sounds a very personal service.
Yeah.
Now, talking about your staff, what's their background?
We have a long track record. So in this space, we're one of the few global companies that's been operating for 15 years. Okay, so there's a very small number that have actually been around the globe in this space, but also great group of local knowledge. We have offices in 212 places. A large portion of those are India, and then around the world. And so, if we look at cultures, I think we're 91 different nationalities inside the group. So I think it's not just one group of people. It's a system. It's an ecosystem of a company, and we're a true global company in that sense.
So let's fast forward 5-10 years. Where do you see communications going?
Well, I think we believe the cloud is going to dominate how we actually do things, and I think one of the things that we're going to see as enterprises is we're no longer going to have computing the way we've had it. Big data is coming. All right, so we're going to do more and more and more in the internet. We're going to do more in the cloud. And what this is going to do is change how we actually are able to do things. Workers can work anywhere on the planet and have everything that they used to have in their office, wherever they are on the planet, whether they're on the top of a mountain or out at the sea, wherever they are, they'll be able to do this securely and be able to operate. And this is the opportunity for companies like ours, as they become global, that we can actually play in this space around the world. And I think that's, for us, the huge opportunity that lies ahead in the next decade.
Sounds very exciting, the future. Bill Barney, thank you for your time.
Thank you.